Hey, what's up, BookTube land? Travis here at Books, Builds, and More, and today I'm doing a book review for Nicole Brona's second book of her Midnight Detective Agency series, Murderous, Faeries. Just a quick note here at the beginning. Due to a recent change in reading plans, this is now a standalone review instead of one that was going to be part of the Jurassic Reading Challenge I'm doing this year, which was my original pick for that. But again, something changed. This is now a book club requirement that I read for the month of February. And with that out of the way, let's get into it, shall we? So I read the first book of her series, Obsidian Murders, back in 2025. I did have a channel then. I just wasn't making content, but I didn't review the book so in video format. But I did on Goodreads, and I gave it 4 stars. It was a really good start to a series like this. I wasn't sure at first that urban fantasy was going to be my thing. Turns out it actually is. And I really love the character of Tessa O'Hara. I like the character of Bloodsworth the vampire in this book and some of the side quirky characters in this. But I also really like this world that she's created. So it centers around this girl named Tessa O'Hara who has this ability to see magical beings. You know, so it's kind of a secret power because there are instances in this series so far that, regular humans, most regular humans, are unaware of the existence of different magical beings. And of course, always that makes for a more exciting and more intriguing storyline for characters like Tessa. But Tessa still is human, and she has human interests, like she loves her coffee. Something very relatable, especially me. She's also a journalist. She's an aspiring journalist, but she actually becomes a journalist by the end of book 1. Well, I guess kind of officially in a magical sense. You would just have to read this series to really know what I'm talking about, and I strongly recommend this series. So book 1 has the kind of premise that really kind of hooked me in right away. It is a midnight detective agency, so it's about this group of characters, basically, that investigate these cases, like mostly murder. You know, there are murders in these 2 books so far, and I'm guessing the third one as well, because it's I've got it right here. It's called Midnight Murders, so I'm guessing there's going to be some killing in that one as well. So they do these investigations on these murders, and the first case in the first book dealt with very interesting. It was a metaphorical kind of deal where it dealt with junk food trafficking between our world and the other world, which is a world that humans cannot go to lest they die or something horrible really happens. So I found that that could possibly be a foreshadowing, something that may happen in a future installment in this series where a human tries to go into, like, I'm guessing maybe Tessa could try to go through these doorways to get to this other magical world that only magical beings can go to and humans can't. So I'm thinking that's going to play somewhat in the series. If it doesn't, I think that would be cool as well. So it made for a very interesting concept to have Tessa restricted in that way, so she can't fully take part in these cases, but Bloodsworth, being a vampire, can. So it's nice to see that these characters' differences, and they have all these different dynamics to them, and they can do things that others can't. So it's going to make for a kind of group effort. You know, it's going to take the strength of the group combined to handle these kinds of cases, which I think is amazing. And having just said that about group dynamics and stuff like that, basically that's what the first book is about, is your setup, but you have to have a great, solid, grounded premise, such as the junk food trafficking case, to really solidify the series to get up and running, which is exactly what the first book does. And when we go into the second book, where the characters are now a little bit more established, but we get to see them more in a cohesive effort on these cases, and we get an addition. Well, not really an addition. Like what I'm trying to say is Drusel or Drusil. I can't really pronounce his name. It's Tess's house elf or house fairy that is kind of joining them on this case. He doesn't really do anything in the first book that I recall that relates to the case, but he's a little bit more involved in this one. So it kind of adds a layer to the group and a sort of added member. Right now, it just feels like Tessa and Bloodsworth are just like this dynamic duo. But I do like the addition of these other characters that are along for the ride. And this is your typical whodunit case where you have a ton of fairies that have been murdered, that are dead, and so they have to go out of town to investigate, and they go to Santa Fe, New Mexico to investigate. So it takes them out of Tessa's hometown of Maryland, Bethesda, Maryland, where the series actually starts from, and it's kind of rooted in. Now, back to the first book for a second. Before I say anything more on the case in this one, I do want to point out one more thing from the first book. The first book, being an introductory entry that it had a kind of a menagerie of all of the different kind of magical beings that I'm guessing we can see throughout the series, like werewolves and elves and witches and, just your typical basic, fantasy and horror style classic monsters and characters and, all kinds of manner of creatures from various folklore and tales like that of yore. So in this book, it seemed to focus more on just the fairy part of the deal because you have a lot more magical beings. It introduces a lot more characters, but they're all fairies. You do have a couple of elves that are introduced as well. And so we're getting a little bit more in magical beings. I would have liked to have seen the werewolves come back. I don't know if we'll get to see them again because there was a small werewolf pack. Werewolves are among my favorite classic monsters, and I really liked the werewolf pack in the first book. It was really cool. I hope we do get to see them again in future installments. But they weren't in this one. It was kind of a bummer, but I enjoyed this book all the same without the werewolves. Because Bloodworth, being a vampire, now I'm not really one big on vampires, but Bloodworth is really cool. He almost gives me like David Boreanaz's Angel vibe from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer universe. But he's not like a vampire with a soul that's on a mission, of redemption or anything like that. He's just, I think because he's been around so long, he needs a purpose. And this is something that he's really good at, and he kind of embraces it, and that's what I like about his character in the book. And that's one thing I really enjoy about this series too, is just the character work. I think Brona did an excellent job with the characters, particularly Tessa's character. I find her to be the most intriguing character of this series thus far, just because she has these different layers to her. But mostly what I found that I personally think is important about her character is the fact that she has this ability about her that's just a part of who she is, and it's treated so casually, like it's not like a big deal being made out of it at all. I mean, her mom, like I think her mother in the book is like a practicing Wicca or a witch or some sort of medium like that. And so it's just very casual, there's no kind of like xenophobic or any kind of, discriminatory manner or prejudice in this book. Even though Tessa is kind of in secret, she's kind of hiding things from like her human friends, like particularly her two neighbors, Alex and Nina, and who are enjoyable characters, but they're not very active. I think they're just kind of used as a way to just kind of anchor Tessa, the human part, the humanity part of Tessa's character, kind of remind us that, hey, this is another part of her that we shouldn't forget about, because we're so excited and intrigued to see all the special stuff about Tessa, and we do, and that's the most important thing. But I do think it was important to keep her grounded in humanity, and on her regular human side as well. But keeping secrets in stories like this are never really a good way to go. So I'm thinking that something is going to happen with that aspect later on in the series. I hope so, at least. If not, there might be something cool about that too, because, like I said, it's not being made a big deal of, which is what I really enjoy about Tessa's character, is that it's just treated so casually. And she's just an all around kick butt gal, She's just cool and just very relatable. So yeah, there's a lot of Tessa O'Hara that is lovable. Now, being that this is only the second book in the series, we've still got quite a laundry list of other secondary and very quirky but very enjoyable characters. Even some of the bad characters, the villains in these books so far, are quite interesting and quite entertaining. So yeah, the biggest thing for me so far that's enjoyable, that I like the most about this series, is just the overall character work. It works very, very well in the story, in the setting of the story. The cases are interesting. Like the case in this book is focuses on like this centuries long family feud between these fairies, and it was just quirky, but very enjoyable. And it demonstrates kind of the political aspect of the magical world and how the laws are made in that land, and where they're not quite as different as ours, but done in certain ways, because it's a magical world. It's still different. So yeah, it's just so intriguing so far. I also like, at least so far, that there's no sign of a romantic connection between Tessa and Bloodsworth. At least I didn't see it, and I don't think there is. They have this playful banter, of course, but that could just be from regular coworker friendship kind of vibes. But I kind of hope it doesn't take a romantic turn between these two. If it does, I'll just have to wait and see how it goes. But right now, I'm just really enjoying their friendship and their work relationship. I also really enjoy the writing structure in this. It's very smooth. It flows very naturally. You can tell that Brona is really speaking to her reader when writing this, because it's just so relatable and it shows so down to earth, even though it's an urban fantasy filled with magical creatures. But the story is flowing very naturally. All in all, I think this is a series that's going to get better as it goes, because the characters already are feeling like they're growing, and growing in an organic way, which I really enjoy because of what kind of genre this book is. Urban fantasy. You've got magical beings, Tessa with her, special ability, but it's all done so casually. What I mean by that is you just feel like you're already in this world, you kind of have a sense of, you already know what's going on. You feel at home with it. And that's another thing that I really enjoy about this. I love stories that just bring you in and make you feel like you're already part, instead of just this, kind of gradual pulling you in. All in all, I did like this book better than the first one, which I rated 4 stars. This one got 4.25 stars. So it's getting up there, and I anticipate a lot of improvement on this, and it's going to get better. I just have a gut feeling. So that's my take on Murderous Faeries, book 2 of Nicole Brona's Midnight Detective Agency series, and honestly, book 1, Obsidian Murders, for that matter, since I didn't video record it before, but I touched on it here. So yeah, I do highly recommend this series. Go check it out. And go check out Nicole's channel at Nicole's Bookish Nook. And check out some of her other literature while you're at it, which I need to do at some point. Anyway, if you've stuck with me this long, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.